godless cranioids, I'm Cosmological. I'm a cartoon astronaut floating in space, and I respond to things I find silly. Today I'm responding to a video by WOOJONG called How to Know God is Real. This is a really intriguing title, so I'm pretty interested, because if God is real, that's something I'd like to be made aware of. Let's see what he has to say.
Give me evidence that God is real. Alright, I got you. But before we begin, let me put on my watch. Because you know these hands are about to go flying and I need to be able to read the time when I do so. In this video here today, I'm going to be answering that question and giving you scientific evidence for the existence of God.
Finally! I was getting tired of theists having nothing but flawed arguments. Variants of the ontological argument, some first cause arguments, arguments from complexity. It's about time somebody showed up with actual scientific evidence instead of just long debunked arguments.
But before we begin, I have to ask you a question. Do you believe that existence and everything that's in it was created from nothing?
Well, created is kind of a loaded word, and I don't really know what you mean by existence. Are you referring to conscious life? The universe as a whole? I don't feel like I have enough to go on to understand this question, let alone answer it properly.
Such as the Big Bang Theory or from particles of dust? Is that what you believe in?
Well, now I'm even more confused. I really don't know how to answer this. How is the Big Bang related to particles of dust? And how does it mean existence being created from nothing? We don't know where all the matter that expanded from the singularity came from. I mean, it could have been there forever, or maybe it came into existence at some point for some unknown reason, or maybe a god made it. I don't know. That doesn't mean I think existence was created from nothing, as you put it.
Okay, regardless of how you answer that question, I'm now going to move on to the next part of this video, giving you an example. Okay, take for instance a book that is organized by table of contents from start to finish. Now this book is filled with words that form sentences, and sentences that create paragraphs, and paragraphs that turn into pages, that turn into chapters. That is a book.
Oh, now I finally understand how books work. Maybe I can read one now. Thanks, man.
Now answer me this. Could a book that is organized and structured just as the way I just described it be created from thin air? Could it? Honestly, ask yourself, could it be? Or answer me this. Could a book that illustrates a story or contains coherent information produce itself out of thin air or from dust? Now, would you agree with me that it is impossible because it is outside the realm of reality?
Well, after some deep soul-searching, yes, a book could not magically appear out of thin air, but I don't really see why you're talking about this instead of presenting your scientific evidence for God. Wait, you do have evidence, right? You're not just going to make some crappy analogy comparing a book to, I don't know, DNA, are you? No, you said you had evidence. I'm sure you'll get to that in a second.
Because a book is made by an author, right? Can we agree upon that?
Well, yeah, unless I'm getting all nitpicky, in which case I'd say a book is written by an author, but in most cases, at least nowadays, it's not actually manufactured by the author, but sure.
If you agree with me, can we move on to the next part of this video?
It's your video, man. We can do whatever you want, regardless of if I agree with you.
Then let me ask you this, okay? If we're moving on, then what is DNA?
DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. It's a biomolecule that stores genetic information and... Wait, why are you bringing up DNA? Oh no, please don't tell me this is going to be a crappy analogy that compares DNA to a book. You said you had evidence. I trusted you.
In its very basic form and definition, scientists call DNA the book of life.
No, god damn it. No, you said you had evidence. I've been tricked. How could you do this to me? I need a minute.
A few minutes later.
Okay, I can do this. Well, to start off, that is not a definition of DNA. A definition looks like this. Second of all, the Book of Life is not really a scientific term. I looked it up and I saw a few references to DNA being called that by some scientists, but it's an informal moniker at most, definitely nothing official.
It's very organized with a table of contents.
Yeah, I looked around for information on this, but I couldn't find anything about DNA having a table of contents. I don't know if he's referring to something real that DNA has that's like a table of contents in some way, or if he just said this to advance the book comparison. If anyone knows what he might be trying to say, please tell me in the comments, because as far as I can tell, this is just false.
It's very organized with a table of contents, structured, and full of instructions to comprise genetic foundations of hair texture, eye colors, ear shape, blood type, and even personality, right? That's what DNA is. What I'm trying to say here today is that your DNA was written even before the moment you were conceived. Can we agree upon all these facts? Are we on the same page?
Not entirely. DNA does store genetic information that is expressed in the phenotype, that's true. I don't really get the table of contents thing, and I wouldn't say my DNA was written before I was conceived, unless you mean all the genetic information in my DNA already existed before I was conceived, which is true, but my exact specific genetic code didn't exist until I was conceived.
So what do you say to a person that believes that a book can make itself out of thin air? It's absolutely nonsense because it's false reality, right? Then how would you respond to a person that believes that DNA made itself, the origins of genetic dispositions and chromosomes fabricated itself out of thin air? What would you say to that person?
Probably nothing, since that person doesn't exist that I'm aware of. I don't know of any serious argument that DNA just popped into existence at some point without anything coming before it. There are a lot of ideas about how life and self-replicating molecules first arose, but several experiments, notably the Miller-Urey experiment, have shown that amino acids could form in early Earth conditions. And the RNA world hypothesis is the idea that there could have been a point in Earth's history where there was a lot of self-replicating RNA, which is simpler than DNA, basically dominating the planet until early life arose. But the point is, nobody thinks DNA magically just showed up one day. It evolved from much simpler molecules over time.
Absolutely nonsense and impossible, right? Similar to how a book is created by an author, our DNA was created from a designer, an architect, a master planner, a creator.
I see. And why is that? You haven't actually given any reason other than DNA can't magically appear out of thin air, which... no shit, Sherlock.
This inventor, this author, is God.
Okay, why? Even if your argument worked, and DNA clearly required an author, which it doesn't, why is it God? That's a pretty big leap in logic. Just being able to determine something is designed doesn't mean you know who designed it. For all you know, it could be aliens, or a different god than yours, or a whole bunch of gods.
For Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 27 reads, Then God said, Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the sky, over the livestock, and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female, he created them.
Yeah, and in the Korean Dongun creation myth, humanity emerged when the god Hwanung, whose pronunciation I'm sure I've butchered, turned a bear into a human woman and married her and gave her a son. Your point is...
Seriously, humble your heart and think about it. Really, if a book is manufactured in an organized structural sense with words that form sentences, that form paragraphs into pages, into chapters, think about our DNA with all the chromosomes and the dispositions for genetic formulations for your eye shape, your skin tone, and all of that. Could that also be fabricated from thin air? No, right? There had to have been a master planner behind our DNA as well.
Nope, not when self-replication with mutation and natural selection are involved. Nobody proposes that DNA appeared out of thin air. It evolved from less complex molecules, and this makes sense, considering that a lot of DNA is just non-coding DNA that doesn't appear to serve any purpose. I mean, admittedly, genetic sequencing is a fairly new science, and we don't know everything about non-coding DNA. Some or all of it could very reasonably serve regulatory function or other purposes, but the fact does remain that there is a lot of DNA that doesn't seem to serve any real purpose and doesn't code for protein sequences.
And that right there, my friend, is your evidence and proof for the existence of God.
Wow, pack it up, everyone. We're done here. There's no more atheism. It's over. He did it. He proved God. God has proved atheism is dead. That's it. We're all done. No more cosmological. No more godless cranium. This guy just proved God.
Now, if you're watching this video and now you're thinking to yourself, maybe God is real, but WOOJONG, I don't know where to start.
You know, that's a good point. I mean, now that I think about it, even if your argument was valid, that would only get you so far as a designer. And even if I'm generous enough to say it gets you to a god, then what? You've only gotten so far as deism, and you haven't even ruled out multiple gods. So, yeah, good luck with that.
Well, let me tell you this. If you're curious about God and you don't know where to start, let me help you out, okay? With a humble heart, start with the Gospels in the New Testament, with teachings from Jesus Christ.
Ooh, I was actually gonna start by reading the Bhagavad Gita. You know, since your argument doesn't actually indicate the Christian God is the designer or even necessarily any God at all. I mean, your argument can basically be summarized. Complexity requires a designer. DNA is complex. Therefore, DNA was designed by my very specific God. Anyway, he goes on about why you should read the Gospels and which ones in what order, which I've cut out because it's not really relevant to the argument. Well, that's all for now. Frankly, I was a bit disappointed. I mean, just a little bit of research into abiogenesis and the origin of DNA completely destroys the argument. But yeah, I've been Cosmological. Feel free to come over to my channel and subscribe. Thanks for watching.